Hello, today we're going to have a look at the flight management computer in the PMDG 737-700 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, first things first, you would imagine when you get into a cold dark 737 you would have to provide some power before you can turn the FMC on. But the PMDG one, that isn't true. I found this out yesterday. If you hold the menu button on when you're cold and dark, it powers up. So the reason for this is you can only get to the PMDG setup menu and you can get to FS Actions. So you can come in here and you can configure your aircraft, for example, to change the hardware on the aircraft. You can save and load your panel states. So if you wanted to load straight into a ready to take off configuration, you can do that in load panel state. So we'll select runway, for example, and we'll execute that. And the aircraft comes to life. It will take a few moments for the EFIS system and the flight control systems to all power up properly, but the engines are spooling up as we speak. If we go and sit outside, you can hear everything coming to life. So give it a few moments for that to happen, and while that's happening, let's go and look at Little Nav Map and see where we are and what we're going to do. So we are at Stansted Airport, we're parked up on the ground, and we're going to program this very short route in, which I've used in some of the other demonstration videos, but we're using it on purpose because we're going to use it to meddle with the flight plan to show some of the functionality that's in the FMC to do with managing flight plans and legs and waypoints. So hopefully this will be very instructive for anybody that's not seen any of this before. And for some people, even if they're experienced, they'll think, oh my word, I didn't know it could do that. Well, that's the plan anyway. Okay, we're just waiting for things to power up in the cockpit. Hopefully the screens will come on very soon. It usually takes about a minute for it to happen. We'll give it some time. If you've never seen this before, people often ask me on the videos I've recorded, how do you get the aircraft to either start in a cold and dark state or in a different state? So if you go into the PMDG setup menu in the FMC, you can see that there is a startup state, and you can choose from the predefined states, and there's 3 pages of them. So we just chose runway, obviously, but there are lots of others. So cold and dark, for example. So on my startup state, I've got cold and dark, so normally I work up the aircraft myself. The advantage of doing that is I know what I've done. Okay, and the checklists I've made available to download on some of my other videos, they rely on that cold and dark state. Okay, so the aircraft is up and running. It's actually ready to roll on the runway, so that was a rather fast way of starting it, wasn't it? So let's go and program our flight plan, which we haven't done yet. So we go to the menu page of the flight management computer, we click on FMC, we go to pause in it like we normally would, and it's already been done. But we can put in our reference airport, EGSS for Stansted. Then we go to our route page. The origin of our route is Stansted. We're going to pretend to fly up to Edinburgh, EGPH. And we're going to take off from runway 22 at Stansted, and then if we go to the departure arrival button, we are going to leave Stansted on runway 22 and the BKY5R standard instrument departure. So then if we go to the route page and activate and execute, that gets things ready. So we can actually fly in this configuration, but if we go and look in the legs page, that obviously hasn't been done, and we haven't set up the initialization parameters, so I'll quickly whiz through this. I do this in more detail in another video, so I'm not going to cover it in great detail here. So £1,000 of reserve fuel, cost index 20. We're not going to bother putting any winds in, and we're going to go to N1 limit. Oh, forgot to put the cruise altitude in, so we'll say 32,000. And N1 limit, and takeoff, and 5-degree flap. That will let us calculate the V-speeds and calculate centre of gravity, which gives us the trim, 5.87. So we then look across to the trim wheel and we spin it until the small needle goes to 5.8-ish on the takeoff margin there. So there we go, and that's done. And that's pretty much it as far as we're concerned for today. So we'll also go and program our arrival into Edinburgh. So we'll arrive on runway 6, we'll take the AGP E1E standard approach route and we'll execute that. And if we go and look in the legs page and we go to the next page of the legs, we'll find there's a discontinuity in the middle of our route. So this is where we get into changing our route. We are going to put a waypoint in the middle of our route. So at the moment we've got the legs up to the end of the standard instrument departure and then the beginning of the standard approach route. And obviously the FMC or flight management computer is not going to guess what's going on in between. So we're going to put in a waypoint called TNT for Trent, which is a VOR station. And we'll insert it, and there's Trent. And we insert it, and it's put it in between the end of the SID, beginning of the star, and made another discontinuity. So we can close that up by selecting AGPED, which is the first waypoint after the discontinuity, and then select the discontinuity, which will pull it up. Okay, we'll execute that. And you can see that has closed the gap. If we go and look further down our flight plan, there's another discontinuity, so that's quite common. The reason for that, if we look at our flight plan, if you notice, the star ends at TARTN, and the approach doesn't start until CI06. So there's another area of the flight plan that the FMC is not going to solve for us. So we can just close it up and say execute, and that's closed that up. So we now have no discontinuities in our flight plan. Okay, so we're going to take off and get en route. So I'm going to pause recording until I've done the takeoff, because obviously that's going to save you some time on watching a video of seeing yet another takeoff, and I'll restart again while we're en route. Okay, so you rejoin me and we're climbing out of Stansted. We're on a level change up to 10,000 feet at the moment, so we'll continue that up to 32,000. It really makes no difference to us at the moment. So we're not going to get into using the master control panel today, but we are going to have another look in a moment at the flight management computer. And the first thing we're going to do, just get this rolled round to 32,000, there it goes. Okay, so you can see there are the waypoints of our standard instrument departure from Stansted ahead of us. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is change our route and do a direct to. So how do we do a direct to? Let's go and look at the legs page on the FMC, and you can see here's all of our waypoints, and we remember we inserted TNT mid-route. What happens if we want to go straight to TNT? So we select it, which puts it in the scratch pad, and then we select the top line in the legs page on the first page, and it's effectively going to modify the route, and we're going to go straight to TNT. So we've effectively pulled from TNT the whole flight plan upwards over the top of anything that was there, and we say execute, and we're now going direct to TNT. So you can see the plane is already turning left. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is vector waypoints. So if we go and change the map to plan mode, we can see, oh, that's fortuitous, it's centered on TNT because it's the next waypoint basically. What if after TNT we actually wanted to carry on, rather than turning north up to Agped, which is 124 miles north of TNT, what if we wanted to go another 300 degrees for another 15 miles or so? So let's increase the range on the EFIS display. What if we wanted to carry on this way? So what we can do is key into the FMC TNT, and then a bearing from TNT, so 300 degrees, then a slash, and then the distance to go, so 15 miles after TNT at 300 degrees. So after TNT, so to insert a waypoint, remember we can just select an existing one, and it will insert it in front of it and move that down. Okay, so that's done that. Look what's happened. So 300 degrees from TNT, 15 miles, and it's made a new waypoint called TNT01. So then we can close up the discontinuity, and we can see that's a new part of the route, and we can execute that. Okay, so that's how you can make vectors. Now the important thing now, if we have a look at that on Little Nav Map, so we've made an extra waypoint out here somewhere that doesn't refer to anywhere on the map, and we based it on somewhere on our flight path. The clever thing is it doesn't have to have anything to do with your flight path. So we could put in, let me stop this from centering on the aircraft. We could put in another waypoint referenced from Tipil, say 5 miles south of Tipil. So if we go step on this to center ourselves on here, and we could say, actually, can you show us the waypoints on here? That's interesting. I thought that was going to show us all of the nearby ones. Let's have a look. Maybe they're too far away at the moment. We can see, yeah, everything's too far away to see it easily. Okay, so what we're going to do though is type in Tipil. That's a shame, otherwise that would have been a lot easier to see what I'm about to do. So Tipil, yeah, and then 180 degrees from it, and say 5 miles along that track, and we'll do that in front of Agped as well. It's because it's behind where we're talking about. Okay, so you can see it's figuring out where to put that into the route, so we'll execute that. So it's made another part of the route that's in reference to Tipil. Okay, and it's got a discontinuity obviously, but we can delete that back out. We don't have to use it, and we can close that gap up and execute. But all I'm really trying to say here is you can base the route on any waypoints you want. So let's do one from Rodol. We'll just do one more to make this obvious what we're doing. So we go Rodol. So instead of going straight to Rodol, we're going to go at, say, 90 degrees from it and 5 miles from Rodol, and we'll do that after our TNT one. Oh, it doesn't know where Rodol is. That's interesting. Oh, we've keyed it slightly wrong. It's 090. So that's a really good pointer there. So you have to do the... I've keyed it wrong again, haven't I? 090/5. So the angle has to be... And it's asking which Rodol we mean. So it's going to be the 53 degree one because it's in the UK. And there you go. Yeah, so relative to Rodol, we've made a new waypoint. And we can close that up and execute. So we're making these points the aircraft must fly through that are near other waypoints. Now, it gets even more clever than that. So let's go and remove these ones, because we're not actually going to use it. Delete, and delete, and close the gap up. So we've got rid of our custom waypoints. So we're back on the path we originally planned. What if, leaving TNT, we wanted to fly through a point on this route that we're flying along that passes Tipil, but we need to put an entry point in here to maybe change direction at that point. So what you can do, and this is called an Abeam waypoint, you can go into Fix and say if we type in Tipil, Tipil, and we click the ABM soft key. What it has done is calculated the closest point on our route to Tipil as a reference from Tipil. So if we click on that again, it puts the full reference in the scratchpad for us. So then we can go over to the legs page. So after TNT, before Agped, we can insert this, close up that gap and execute it, and look what it's done on the flight plan. If I zoom in slightly, so you can see there's Tipil, and it's made a waypoint marker that's on our existing route. So it's done a vector waypoint for us that's on our route, so we could use it as a turning point perhaps. Okay? Another thing we might want to do, we're flying towards TNT at the moment. When you're looking at your flight plan, you'll notice that the aircraft automatically figures out the route between the waypoints. So for the one you're actually flying towards, you can change that route in. So we can change the radial. So we're going 317 degrees into TNT at the moment. What we can do, if we click on the routes page, sorry, wrong page. If we go to legs page, sorry, select TNT, select TNT again, so you're modifying TNT. This will only work for the first leg in the list that you're actually flying towards. It comes up saying interception course. Okay? And it's saying 316 degrees at the moment. So in other words, we're flying 316 to get there. What if we wanted to fly 350 to get there? So we'll go here and we'll type, clear this, and we'll go 350 and put that in instead. So we want to fly, and notice it's put it onto the flight plan. We want to fly actually the 350 radial into TNT. So we can execute that. So then if we are flying in LNAV mode, which should be working. Oh, we've got the wrong speed up here. Sorry, I'm busy killing the aeroplane while we're doing this. Let's go to altitude hold mode for the moment. Let the aircraft recover. While I was busy talking, obviously we were not taking any notice of the aeroplane. And we'll go back to LNAV now, or it should let us. See, look, now we are not on an intercept heading. Okay? Which makes perfect sense. If we go and zoom out and show this, and zoom out further, yeah, we're not on an intercept heading for that course, so we need to enter heading select mode, and we need to tell the aircraft to go on to an intercept heading for us. So it's not going to perform wonders. So we're just changing our heading for heading select mode, which is fine. So now we are on an intercept heading. Notice it says that down here. We can then say LNAV, and it jumps across and it will intercept for us, and you can see it's already plotted the route and the turn to make. So that was changing the intercept course for the waypoint we are heading towards. And the reason you might do that is ATC might tell you, I want you to fly into this VOR from this direction. Okay, the other trick we can do is an offset course. So we're flying along, and imagine there's another aircraft exactly on our track and we want to go around them. Wouldn't it be great if we could just fly a few miles to the left or the right for a while? So what you can do is click on the route button, and you can click on offset, and you can say L or R and a number of miles. So if we say, keep an eye on this while we do it, I'll zoom back in to make it obvious. If we say L and 2, left 2 miles, and then it asks for a start and an end waypoint to do it. We're going to take no notice of that, but we can execute it, and it's actually not drawing it very well. But what it will do is fly a couple of miles to the side of the waypoint. Let's do a direct 2 so we can see it. It's obviously not going to render it while we're going straight for that. So we'll leave that there with offset 0 down, and we'll go route, and we'll go direct to TNT. Oh, of course we've got the radial set, haven't we? So if we went for 3 20, yeah. I'm going to pause and wait till we're back on the track. Obviously you can't completely overload these things, because what should happen when we go to route, we should be able to offset and say L5 for example, so left 5. You can see it was starting to draw it then. Let's say we'll do it from TNT just to make this easier for the system. Yeah, there you go, it's worked it out, look. So it wanted a start waypoint. So when we get to TNT, it's going to go 5 miles to the left of the track. And then further on down the road, we could make it come back in or just stay out there. So we execute that and you get the offset route. Okay? The final thing we're going to look at is range rings. So if we go further along our track, we'll go back to plan mode. And we'll go next on the legs page, so we can move the plan center further along our route. So step, step. So maybe we want some range rings at AGPED, for example, to just a big circle drawn on the map, so we know when we're in map mode, we know the waypoints coming from a long way out. So if we were to zoom this out to show us 160 miles worth, which is almost the rest of the journey, we can then go into fixes. So we can't quite see it because the light's shining on it. There's the fix button. We'll say next, and we'll type in AGPED, AGPED. So at AGPED we want some range rings. So we type in a slash and a radius for the range rings. And there we go. So we've got a green dotted line around AGPED. Okay? And you can just leave that there. So then when we're in map mode, it'll make more sense when we look in map mode. If we're zooming in, you can see when we get to within 100 miles of AGPED, you'll see those lines coming. So you can make reference markers. And it doesn't have to be something on your route. It could be like an airspace you want to make sure you stay away from, or an airfield. So you could draw a line around it. Okay, so hopefully that's really useful. So just to go back over what we've looked at today, we've looked at adding and removing waypoints. We've done direct to, we've done vector waypoints, we've done Abeam waypoints, which is really a way of pre-calculating vector waypoints. We've done intercept courses, we've done offset courses. Now the thing that we missed initially when we set the offset course was, let's just zoom that in, was that you have to set a start point for it. It won't do it from where you are. You have to say, at what point. So you can see this, it's all rather complicated, this kind of plan that we've started to draw out here. As we draw closer to this, you'll see it happen. And we also looked at range rings. So there's a ton of functionality hidden away in the flight management computer to help you really, go to town on your route. So you can see here we've got offset waypoints, we've got offset flight plans. It's very cool. Okay, so there you go. So you should be able to now pretty much make up any flight plan you like. So using custom waypoints, using the waypoints that are actually out there on the map, and doing offsets and intercept courses, and the world is your oyster for navigating the skies. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. So yeah, you can see this is actually really quite detailed, isn't it? So we'll just hang on for a moment and we'll watch the plane as it goes. Yeah, look, the top of climb has now deviated to the offset route. It's very cool. So we'll wait for the aircraft to turn off onto the offset route just to prove that it's going to do it. So it's busy turning left at the moment. And it should just keep the turn going, I imagine. It might straighten up momentarily. So what's actually going on here is we've inserted a waypoint here, but it's offsetting 5 miles to the west of it, or to the left of it, sorry. So I guess the main reason you might use an offset is, yeah, if you are in a queue of other aircraft and you're closing in on an aircraft in front of you, you could offset by a few miles if it's like a long range route without changing altitude. And just get out of the way of the ACARS warnings. So there you go, it's following it. It's very cool. Okay, so we covered quite a lot of ground there today, and we almost stalled the aeroplane while we were busy looking at the FMC, but it's all good. If you didn't see me making the mistakes, you wouldn't learn how I got out of them. That's my covering story for that one. Okay, I'm going to stop recording there. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll see you again soon.